Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Forestry podcast. I'm your host, Seth Stephenson, the communications coordinator with the Arkansas Forestry Association. Today, we are back with a brand new episode and some new Voices of Forestry discussing the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership. But before we get into that topic, let me give a special shout out and thank you to our sponsors this month, DDK Forestry and Real Estate. We're going to hear a little bit more from them later on in today's episode. Now, today I have two guests. Like I said, we've got two new voices. Today, joining me, we have Tyler Fox, the River Conservation Program Manager with the Nature Conservancy, and Eric Brinkman, the Assistant Chief of Aquatic Conservation and Fisheries Division at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Gentlemen, thank you guys for braving the crappy weather outside.
Hey, thank you, Seth. It's great to be here on this rainy morning in Little Rock on the doorstep of fall. So it's a good day to be talking about the Stream Heritage Partnership.
Awesome. Well, guys, since you are new, let's kind of start with your professional backgrounds. Eric, I want to start with you since you're the furthest from me here in the room. Just kind of if you could let the people know who you are and kind of how you got to be where you're at.
Sure. So I've been in the conservation industry, I guess, since about 2004. I graduated from college at Arkansas Tech University with a bachelor's degree in fish and wildlife biology. Got my first job with an environmental consultant out of Pine Bluff, Lair Biologics, and we did a lot of environmental consulting, just, worked for different state agencies or TNC and different groups, focused on really the Bayou Bartholomew watershed was the focus there. And I went on, worked for them for about a year and a half, and then moved to Oklahoma State University to get a master's degree in natural resource ecology and management. Finished my master's in 2008 and then took a job with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. After that, my first job with Game and Fish was as a district fisheries biologist out of Camden. And then I worked there for 4 years, moved to the Hope office in 2012, worked there till 2021 when I moved into the assistant chief role over our our non-game programs. The conservation programs, we managed our non-game species, invasive species, stream habitat, all the different things that affect our native species throughout the state, native aquatic species, that is.
And that's where you're at currently.
That's where I currently work.
Okay, awesome. Tyler, same for you. How'd you get to where you're at?
Sure, Seth. Well, my background is also in fish and wildlife conservation, and I got my start in the field studying lichens in the forests of central Maine, which is a great place to learn, tree species and kind of a way around the forest. But I first came to Arkansas in 2007 from Cheyenne, Wyoming, and I attended UCA, University of Central Arkansas in Conway, where I got a master's degree, worked on water quality issues, actually Big River caves, and kind of specifically how that affects, the unique species in underground cave communities. So since then, I've worked for wildlife agencies and universities and parks in the U.S. and Southern Europe and Southern Africa as well, and helping to restore rivers and lakes and wetland habitats for wildlife, and also to improve the livelihoods and well-being of local communities. And so since about 2023, I've been leading the River Conservation Program at the Arkansas Nature Conservancy based here in Little Rock, and we also have an Ozark Highlands office up in Fayetteville. And together we work with partners from all walks of life and sides of the aisle to conserve the land and water we all depend on.
Okay. Well, now, listeners, you probably are seeing a trend here just with our guest backgrounds that it's going to be pretty wildlife and water heavy in this episode, and we'll kind of get into how that affects forestry here later in the show. But gentlemen, I kind of mentioned this to you. Max, our executive VP, brought you guys up to me a couple months ago, and I put it down, and we wanted to get you guys on the show at some point. But I was also kind of learning what exactly this partnership does. So can y'all just explain to our guests what exactly the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership is? What does this group do?
Yeah. So, at its core, it is a partnership. There is no formal agreement of the people that are involved. It is 100% a partnership. People agreeing to work towards a common goal. Really, a gentleman's handshake agreement. Nobody's bound to to provide money, provide staffing, or anything. We just all say we're working on these common issues. Let's come together and achieve more together. So it is a aquatic connectivity team, which is a technical term for these groups that are occurring across the Southeast and really starting to expand across the country. It was a brainchild of the Southeastern Aquatic Resources Partnership, which is another semi-governmental NGO kind of group that is funded through the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Again, trying to advance conservation of aquatics throughout the southeastern U.S. These aquatic connectivity teams started in the mid-2000s. Arkansas's the Stream Heritage Partnership was the fourth to be developed, to put together. And, the focus of this group is, to restore connectivity to our streams, try to make them free-flowing. Really started kind of in the east, in places like North Carolina and South Carolina, where there was a lot of low-head dams from mill dams and things. They were dilapidating. They're no longer needed, and they're falling apart. Looking at how can we take these out? They're no longer needed. There's a desire to remove them. What can we do? Let's come together and start removing these things and restore that stream connectivity, because it benefits our native wildlife. It benefits water quality, benefits ecosystem health, all these other things. And it morphed from there. I mean, each state has its own goals and objectives. We don't have a lot of low-head dams in Arkansas. We don't have a lot of old mill dams left. And so really, in Arkansas, we're more focused on road crossings, because that is the major impediment to fish passage and other aquatic organisms moving up and using the entire stream, because they don't just stay in a pool, they don't just stay in a riffle, they need the entire reach to access the habitats they need for their various life stages.
Okay, yeah, Tyler, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, yeah, that's right. Just kind of following up on what Eric said, and we're a large collaborative group, and we bring together a really wide range of partners and talents from state and federal agencies like Arkansas Natural Resources Division, Game and Fish and Natural Heritage Commissions, Arkansas Department of Transportation, U.S. Forest Service and Fish and Wildlife Service on the federal side, along with timber companies like Weyerhaeuser and Green Bay Packaging, universities, University of Central Arkansas and U of A, and also a host of nonprofits and landowners and local government. And so, we are really focused, or have been focused at least since the beginning, on restoring and reconnecting Arkansas's rivers and streams, and helping counties and landowners and timber companies and others remove and replace these aging and often hazardous stream crossings, like low head dams and low water slabs, which we have a lot of. So, for the county road departments and for landowners, essentially this means, a lot less long-term maintenance costs and labor, and ultimately more reliable crossings. For conservation, it helps promote healthy rivers in Arkansas, and less sediment, that enters that system, the better. Keeps our water clean and allows fish and other freshwater creatures like mussels access to habitat and food resources they've been cut off from. And sometimes they've been cut off to these tributaries for 30, 40, 50 or more years by some of these crossings.
Okay. And so this might be getting a little in the weeds. And Eric, we kind of talking before the show, you've kind of been a part of this group since its inception in 2018. How did this group come together? Was it just a bunch of phone calls started being made and everyone sat down in a room and that handshake took place, or what happened there to get this going?
Really, it was a series of conversations, meetings, discussions, and really spearheaded by Darrell Bowman, who was then director of the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission, which is now part of the Arkansas Parks, Tourism, and Heritage, Arkansas Parks, Heritage, and Tourism Department. And Daryl, I guess, had been to a meeting and heard about the other ACTs that were being formed in the East, and Georgia and North Carolina and a few other places, and thought that's a brilliant idea. We need to do that here too. We have our own set of issues that are affecting our native species, affecting water quality, affecting safety. Let's address them. And he brought together the right players. People from TNC, Arkansas chapter of the American Fisheries Society, university partners. The Arkansas conservation community has just always been a tight-knit, partnership-driven community, because we know it takes everybody's expertise to really achieve the things that we need to. And I think he just understood that and built on it and brought the right people to the table, and they all agreed this is something we need to pursue. And it took some time to get steam rolling, but we're 8 years, almost 8 years in, and we're moving forward with some really impactful projects.
Yeah, that's right. And Seth, I mean, we really saw the need. A lot of folks saw the need to unite efforts and strengths, and the state, federal, and local community and partners together to tackle some of the issues we're seeing in our rivers and streams. And stream fragmentation and infrastructure challenges are something that we all share here in Arkansas, and it won't come as much of a surprise to most landowners along Arkansas's rivers, and that over the past decade or more we've seen a pattern of more frequent and larger and more intense rainstorms, and localized flooding and stream bank erosion, and then this is paired with extended periods of heat and drought, and it's continuously, wreaking havoc on our unpaved road infrastructure and sometimes the paved road infrastructure. I know, this past 2 summers ago when we got up to about 110 degrees, and some of those paved roads were, buckling and melting. And so, it's not just the unpaved roads that have some issues, and it's only been getting worse. Those of us living in rural Arkansas know this well, that you go down any old gravel road, and today is a good example. It's, you drive down a road today after big rain, you'll see clogged and washed out culverts and failing ditches, and all of this causes issues to our road networks, unpaved road networks, and our streams. Runoff of sediment and other water quality pollutants. So. This group is, together to see how we can figure out how to help our rivers and help local communities too.
That is one thing, kind of going back to what, Eric, you were saying, the community in Arkansas, the conservation community specifically, is very close-knit. And I know, speaking to some of our friends in other states, that close-knittedness isn't as prevalent in other places. So Arkansas is very blessed to kind of have folks like yourselves who are willing to come together to achieve a common goal and make things happen, instead of splintered groups trying to do their own thing. So one thing I do kind of want to kind of talk about is so what exactly do some of the projects that this partnership work on? What do these look like? What are we doing specifically out there on these unpaved roads or to help stream side?
Yeah, so it's a varied list of projects, but they're all focused on this, this core goal of increasing aquatic connectivity, stream connectivity throughout the state. And so, one of the projects we've tried to advance, the Arkansas Natural Resources Division's Unpaved Roads program, which tries to reduce sediment flows coming into our streams, coming off of our unpaved roads, our gravel roads, which, again, as Tyler mentioned, gravel roads are not a bad thing. There's just some best management practices that we can implement on the way they're ditched, the way they travel down a slope, that reduces the amount of sediment coming off of them, which is our number one pollutant. Our number one source of that sediment is our gravel road systems. And Arkansas has a tremendous network of roads, both private and public. And so working with those right partners to address, implement those BMPs will benefit everybody with clean water, with better wildlife habitat, better wildlife populations, which we all value in this state. I mean, we're a very rural state. We enjoy our outdoor recreation. There's huge recreation focus and initiative in the state right now. So we want to provide clean, quality places for people to go recreate as well. So another, other projects, the first thing is, because of this vast network, nobody knows where all the ditches and dams and creeks and culverts are. One of our major initial projects was to do an inventory, and we couldn't inventory the entire state. It's just too much area. We are a better group together, but we still all have our other day jobs to do. We still have limited resources, time, money, staffing to accomplish these things. But by sharing that burden, we spread it out, and we achieve more, we get more done. And so within the last 2 to 3 years, we've been focused on assessing the road crossings in our conservation opportunity areas, which I know that's a new technical term, but I'll try to explain what that is. The Arkansas Wildlife Action Plan, which is a plan that were mandated by the U.S., I guess by Congress and the U.S. through the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to have in place for our native species conservation. It's really just a granting, it's a funding mechanism for the state for species of greatest conservation need. Again, we were trying to take too broad of a stroke approach with that, so we had to focus in where are our species of concern, where are the species that are most imperiled, where do they exist in the state. We identified those through a series of plans which created these conservation opportunity areas. There's 11 watersheds in the state of Arkansas that are among those conservation opportunity areas. So we focused on those 11 watersheds these past 3 years, assess every road crossing in each of those, and through contracting, through bringing funding in from Game and Fish and various, TMC and the State Wildlife Grants Program, we've been able to we're almost complete with that. We'll finish up in December of this year, and it'll be, my goodness, how many barriers will be assessed? Like, I want to say 3,500.
Yeah, well over 3,000, pushing 4,000 just in the past.
So we're going in assessing using
year.
a very quick protocol. Is this an impediment to, are the velocities too high here? Is water flow through here enough or insufficient? Is it a perch culvert? Is there any way that a fish, a small-bodied fish or even a large-bodied fish could swim through this 90% of the year or some percentage? So we've gone in and assessed. The next step will be to prioritize. Where are those highly impactful crossings at? And those will be the ones that we need to remediate first, not necessarily remove, but let's put in a better crossing there that will pass better, larger quantities of water majority of the year. They're not going to necessarily pass every flow event, but if they pass the 75th percentile of flow events, then we've improved vehicular traffic, we've improved safety for the area residents, we've improved fish passage, which also benefits mussels and crayfish and salamanders and everything else. If a small body fish can get through there, most of those other things can too.
Yeah, that's right. Just to kind of put some numbers, on that, Arkansas, of course, has a whole lot of incredible rivers and streams, which is, one of the big reasons I live here. But they've got Arkansas. We've got over 120,000 miles, in fact, of streams, both big and small, and that number has kind of grown over the years as we've gotten more higher resolution imagery and digital elevation models, and we're able to kind of look and see where those tributaries go, because a lot of folks, when they think of rivers and streams, they think of that main stem. They think of the the upper Little Red River, the Saline River, the Ouachita, of course, the Buffalo, and others. And so in fact, most of the water in those comes from up in the hills and through smaller tributaries. So we also we know, as Eric said, we have a whole lot of gravel roads and forest roads, and those are we have well over 80,000 miles in the state, and about 85% of those are county roads, and they're unpaved. So those unpaved roads are the essential rural transportation backbone, for many rural Arkansans and school, including school districts and important economic sectors, agriculture and outdoor recreation, and not the least of which is forestry. And if you've ever been out in the Upper Saline River watershed or down in southern Arkansas, you know just how extensive the dirt and gravel road network really is. And so we quickly realized. The partnership did one of the best things we can do is work to fix road infrastructure. It's an absolute win-win. It reduces pollution, it lets fish get where they need to, and keeps roads and stream crossings open by preventing them from washing out. So, as Eric said, along these roads, the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership has identified tens of thousands of places, literally where these roads cross over a stream channel, and many folks know, those crossings frequently flood out, and a lot of them are having structural issues, increasing structural issues due to their age, and that means a lot of potential issues for communities, for landowners, for motorists, for paddlers, and for timber companies, getting their product to market. So, but also for the fish and other organisms living in our streams, and we have. Here in Arkansas, really some of the most incredible and diverse streams and freshwater habitats and species in the world, right here in Arkansas, and species that are found nowhere else in the world. And so, again, we approach all of our projects together as a partnership, and Arkansas is really unique in the level of cooperation among the conservation communities. You go to some other states, and it's not quite like that. And so, we really do have a great community working together to restore habitats and improve recreation, and make our infrastructure safer, and more cost effective for future generations of Arkansans.
Well, yeah, and I just want to add to that we've done all these assessments, but we've also implemented some of this stuff already, as opportunities arose, not necessarily in prioritized order at that point, but when opportunity presented itself, we were able to strike on a couple of projects. And one of the biggest projects we did was with Weyerhaeuser Corporation starting in 2022. They had identified, through this collaboration and conversations with Clay Mangum down in their Timberlands office in southwest Arkansas, had identified 3 road crossings that on the Saline River that they no longer needed anymore. They were dilapidating. They were a hazard to them. They were a liability to them as a private landowner who's leasing lands and allowing the public to come onto their property for recreation. They said, can you help us remove these? And Game and Fish partnered with them as well as ANRD through their EPA 319 grant program, and provided some funding for us to go in and Game and Fish staff to actually just totally remove those barriers at a very cost-effective rate. Cost Weyerhaeuser nothing but some gravel and some land to put these materials. And that partnership, that coordination was highlighted across Weyerhaeuser industry, Weyerhaeuser Corporation, which is nationwide. They actually flew in people from Washington and North Carolina to come see what we were doing as a partnership in cooperation with them, how the industry and state governments can work together to achieve common goals. Again, just highlighting that partnership. And it was pretty cool to see that.
And I can give an example of a recent project that we worked on with counties and the county road department, and so the Nature Conservancy and other members of the Stream Heritage Partnership got together to remove 2 aging low water stream crossings with terribly undersized concrete culverts on the main stem of the middle fork of the Upper Little Red River. And these, they've been there for, I don't know, probably since the 70s or so, at least, if not longer. And, whenever they had any issues, the standard practice is just to kind of go in and put some concrete down and fix those cracks, and put the rebar back under, so it's not presenting any problems. And after a while, you just can't do that anymore. They get to the point where they need more concentrated approach, I guess. And so these that we went in with the county and with Judge Stacy Avey up there, and they helped replace these crossings, and they they're wider and they're higher now, and they have much larger rectangular openings, and these are called box culverts, and they made of concrete, and they're buried kind of below the stream grade, and they act as a grade control, and they are self-flushing, and so they allow one of those crossings allows 10 times more water to flow, and in fact a single box culvert array there allows more water to flow through than all those undersized crossings combined. And so this is especially important, that we engineer for the future, and because most of the road stream crossings and low water crossings aren't. They put in, again, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and we're just getting, these days more intense rainstorms, and we're getting more because as the air gets warmer, it holds more water, more air, more water vapor, and hold more air. It just dumps more and more rain, and these big downbursts, and they can wash out stream banks and undermine some of these older crossings that weren't designed to handle such extreme stream flows. And so together, these two new crossings, one's about 5 miles from the other, and they restored connectivity to upstream habitat, and totals about 308 miles, network miles. And so that's that network miles are just the connected stream channel and tributaries, and that includes 26 miles of the main stem of the Middle Fork. So for folks who are interested in been up in that area. And so anyway, that's all to say the county and local community now have better crossings, and the fish and mussels have a free flowing river that allows them to get up into these tributaries, which provides important habitat and food resources and refugia from predators, which is really especially important for young fishes. So those are two good examples of recent projects that have really made a difference, I think, in Arkansas streams.
Okay. Well, guys, this is all great, and I want to kind of dive into a little bit more about the importance of these partnerships here in a little bit. But for now, we're going to take a quick break to hear more from our sponsors this month, DDK Forestry and Real Estate. DDK proudly supports the AFA. In 1962, Mr. Jerry Davis started DDK with a core value of wanting to help forest landowners. With the professional services DDK provides, they allow landowners to have complete confidence in their portfolio, knowing that their property is managed at the highest level from an expert team with years of experience. Give DDK Forestry and Real Estate a call today and let them help you begin your land legacy. 501-219-8600 or visit them at forestryrealestate.com. Thank you again to DDK Forestry and Real Estate for their continued support of the show. So, gentlemen, one thing I do kind of want to talk about is, and we've kind of danced around this question just a smidge, is what exactly, I guess, the importance for these, opening up these streams and making them accessible and making them cleaner, if that's the correct terminology, for the wildlife in this area. Why? What does this pollution, the sediment pollution that you guys have kind of mentioned, or the lack of accessing these tributaries for the stuff that you mentioned before the break here, Tyler, what exactly happens to these wildlife, or to the wildlife, if they don't have access to that, or if there is pollutants in the water?
I'm going to punt this over to Eric.
So I want to start that off with a preface that, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize about Arkansas is it's one of the most aquatically diverse states in the country. We have, we're probably third or fourth ranked behind Tennessee and Alabama just because of the geology of this state. We have 7 ecoregions in this state. Some states are covered by 1 or 2. So we have a lot of ecoregions emerging here, which has resulted in a huge aquatic diversity. We have 230 species of fish, more than 230 species of fish alone in this state, not to mention our mussels and crayfish and salamanders and all these other species that are highly dependent on aquatic systems. And so, that's really truly one of the most special things about the state we live in. And, we all love to be outside in nature and recreating and hunting and fishing. But when you dive a little bit deeper, it's all that diversity that has allowed us to have such a stable system. Those different species provide forage for the species we do hunt and fish. When one species has a low year and fails, we got another species that supports forage for our smallmouth basses, our rockfishes, our crappies, our catfishes, something for them to feed on. So it requires, by having that wide variety, we have a stable resource to pursue ourselves. But what happens with all this sediment input is it generally smothers out. Like, these species are dependent on the spaces between the rocks, between the gravels, between the boulders to hide, to spawn. That is where they live. And when you have this excess sediment load or these excess gravels, finer gravels coming down the stream, and they pile up where these animals live, they can't breed, they can't hide, they have nowhere to hide from the predators to produce that next generation. And many of them are very short-lived. So, a lot of them within their first year, they're spawning. A lot of these small-bodied fishes, they may only live 2 years on average. And if you miss one spawn, you may lose the whole population in that stream. And if they're not in multiple streams, you may have lost that entire species to the state, if not the world, because some of the species only occur in the state of Arkansas. They're called endemic species because they only occur here, or they only occur in a very small area like a single watershed or a tributary to a watershed. So, to protect that diversity, to protect what we do enjoy, what we do have familiarity with from a recreational standpoint, we have to protect everything. And it does increase water quality, reduces, cleaner water is easier to treat. It's easier for us to drink. All of our water comes from a stream of some sort. And you talk to your water supply departments in your cities and counties, and one of their biggest expenses is water treatment. The cleaner the water is coming in, the less they have to treat it, the less they have to treat it going out. They don't have to remove sediments, they don't have to remove iron, all these other things. If it's clear, clean water coming in, they have very little to do with it, and they can just pipe it right out to you at a cheaper cost to you.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because something I failed to mention was, we did kind of do an episode a while ago on forest and drinking water and how those two kind of interact. And we're about to get to how the work you guys are doing interacts with forestry, but I'm glad you brought that up as a good little segue. So if you're curious about forest and drinking water, we have an episode that you can go back and look at or listen to previously. But how exactly, guys, I know, Tyler, you mentioned kind of the infrastructure specifically is a big thing that kind of affects forestry. But how does the work that you guys are doing further affect forestry, if at all?
Yeah, that's right, Seth. And well, I mean, at a very basic level, better stream crossings and better unpaved road networks mean, a more reliable and resilient transportation network for forestry operations in the state. Gravel roads are just, they're such a major part of timber operations, here in Arkansas and elsewhere. And, better stream crossings require much less maintenance, which saves time and money in the long run, as well as, these streams, healthy streams, support productive forests. And clean water, and this benefits both Arkansas and as well as the timber industry. They have increasingly a lot of audits and assessments and standards that their customers are asking to see. And when you have stream management zones that you're maintaining in close proximity to stream channels, a lot of our timber companies are going above and beyond what's required in those, which is fantastic to see, and they're always looking at ways to increase the value that's added from doing that. And like I said, increasingly they're being asked to do that and to demonstrate that from folks who are buying the timber. So these as these stream crossings age out, Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership and sees a really unique opportunity to work with timber companies, and county road departments and landowners. We're not just working with big companies, and we're not just working with county local governments and counties. We're working with anyone who wants to reach out and learn more about how to better build a better crossing and maintain their unpaved road networks, whether it's agricultural land or or elsewhere. And I see Eric nodding over here.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add. I think what our partnership does provide, what partners within our partnership provide, is training to forest industry on how to install BMPs for these unpaved roads, to county roads foremans, to do the same thing. That if you build the road this way, you will have less maintenance. You'll have less gravel you have to bring in to retop this road. Just make sure that you cut your ditches this way or whatever. Build your road crossing this way, and it may cost you a little bit more on the front end, but it'll cost you less over the long end. We're also looking into more cost-effective ways to install road crossings and trying to getting things engineered so that they don't have to go pay for the engineering. Here's one of our goals is going forward is to try to put together this pamphlet of here's the BMPs, here's some cost-effective road crossings. Won't work for every situation, but here's where it will work. Here's a good way to approach this. Also, I think this benefits the forest industry in achieving their sustainable forestry initiatives to get that higher price value for their products. And so anything they're doing for conservation is going to give them, and I can very quickly get outside my depth on that topic, compared to what your listeners know about the subject. But, I think it helps them achieve those accreditations.
Well, and that's right. And, I'll just chime in again with some numbers. We were just talking about, how blessed we are here in Arkansas with the total acres of forest land in the state, and we're looking at something around 19 million acres of forest land covering over 55% of the state, and that's 73% of that is privately owned. So that's a lot of a lot of folks who are dealing, with some of these unpaved roads and the crossings. And, forestry itself contributes to, hugely to the state's economy. It's, probably around about 4% of, the entire state's economy. And, Arkansas is about, the second most timber dependent economy in the nation.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah. And so, forest companies own, about 15% of that, 73% of private timberland ownership. And so, this is something that, here in Arkansas benefits everybody, and a lot with the forestry, the timber companies and forestry industry. And so, and this is kind of a good place just to kind of give a shout out to the Arkansas Unpaved Roads program, which has been operating in the state and kind of overlaps with some of what we do. The Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership focuses primarily on those, stream crossings and adjacent unpaved roads, but then there's a whole lot of, unpaved road network out there, and Arkansas Unpaved Roads program, is has been around for about a decade now or so, and has been operating on a pretty small budget, and hopefully that will just increase over the years, kind of to match the need that we've been talking about, because when we're working to improve these crossings and accommodate greater stream flow variability and lower costs and long-term maintenance and improve recreation and motorist safety, all while preserving the natural structure of streams for fish and sediment. We're seeing a huge benefit for the timber industry and for all Arkansans, and I mean, honestly, for the whole nation.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let me kind of tie some threads together from previous episodes and discussions that we've had. Eric, you talking about the work that you guys are doing to kind of help for people to help meet their sustainable forestry initiative goals. That kind of is a big thing right now, especially in the forestry industry with the EUDR, the European Union Deforestation Regulation Act, that's being discussed that will affect folks here in Arkansas. And Tyler, you talking about helping communities, or helping the forestry industry as a whole, which those small communities here in Arkansas that depend very highly upon the forestry industry, they're going to benefit from stuff like this. So it all kind of flows together and ties together in various ways. So I'm glad that you guys, that's one of the reasons we wanted to have you on, is to show that it's not, you guys aren't out just fixing low water crossings. It really does kind of affect and flow into what is going on a grander scale here in the state. So this is all great. But we've kind of talked about what you guys have done, and I know you two are stepping into a leadership role with the partnership. So what exactly do you guys see? What's next for this partnership?
So I think, as I mentioned, we've worked really hard for the last 2 to 3 years on inventorying these road crossings in our conservation opportunity areas. I think our next biggest step is to move into more implementation, identify where these high priority crossings are, where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck, where we're going to impact the most native species, where we're going to reconnect the most miles of stream. Start working together, find funding, find ways to mitigate these crossings, with either total removal or replacement with something that's more of a span type or an arch culvert, where we pass the majority of flows, up to maybe the 5-year flood, get more passage under those crossings, so that you always have the ability to get across, and you always have the ability for a fish or other aquatic organism to move upstream. I think that's the biggest next step. We'll continue to assess, because we've only got about 10% of the state covered at this point, or less. So we will continue to assess opportunistically and strategically. I think we'll move into the next phase of that. But also, we're going to try to step up, on our training opportunities through the Unpaved Roads Program and ANRD. Try to work with more counties. Some counties are more engaged in these types of efforts, in these unpaved roads programs, in these barrier improvement projects. We want to reach a broader community there. We also want to work with more partners in the forest industry. We've had good success with Weyerhaeuser. We're starting to work with Green Bay, but we want to work with Potlatch and all the smaller Anthony Timberlands and anybody else that wants to partner with us. We're glad to help them, provide them information, provide them mechanisms to achieve better road management in their systems.
Yeah, well said. And I'll just add. That's said it. I think several times, several ways that partnerships are key to this whole effort. And the reality is that many of these gravel and forest roads are owned by or critical to the operation of harvesting, timber harvest, and transportation, transporting our state's timber products to market. And so, timber companies, folks need reliable and resilient roads to get their, get the trees out. And so, to get further and faster on this. We need to be working, with companies like Weyerhaeuser and Green Bay Packaging, PotlatchDeltic, and others. But that's not limited to that. And so if folks can get involved, with these assessments and inventories on their own, there's a handbook for it. Through the Stream Heritage Partnership and the Southeastern Aquatic Resources Partnership, which is now being renamed, I think. But that's something to come. But there's a survey 1, 2, 3, which is a online circuit forum. We got an app for that. So hey, if you want to get involved and you spend a lot of time out and seeing these crossings, whether it's on you're fishing or paddling or on a gravel grinder out there on the roads or whatever, then take a tape measure along and you can do these surveys too. So every now and then we hold trainings.
It's not the assessments aren't they're super fast. 5 minutes at a crossing on average, and
maybe 10 or 15 sometimes, depending on the crossing.
On how quick you are, how big they are.
Yeah. I've seen some big crossings at a time, and when you get to one of those monsters that has 16 small culverts in there,
it takes a minute.
It's going to take a little more time than that. And I guess anyone who's built one of these things knows that several small culverts are a lot cheaper than one big one, and so that's why we have some of these, so many of them.
But we'd be happy to train roads managers in these forest companies or any private landowner on how to assess these barriers, and they can enter them into the SARP database, and then for them to later be prioritized so that they know where are our problem issues, where do we need to invest our infrastructure dollars into addressing a problem before it becomes a huge problem, before it washes out and I have to do something. Maybe I need to invest now and address it early.
So what's the best way, if someone is interested, to get this training or to just get with you guys to talk a little bit more? What's the best way for them to get in touch with the partnership?
Yeah, right now, I mean, the best way is probably to reach out through the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership website. We do have a email, and you can always contact the Nature Conservancy or Eric at Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. Natural Resources Division can help connect that, and Kevin McGahee, who's overseeing the Arkansas Unpaved Roads program, doing a fantastic job. That whole program is kind of to put folks in touch with the right people, and so reaching out to any of us can kind of pave the way. These are kind of as we evolve, this Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership, we're hoping, looking down the road, no pun intended, to have hold more and more of these trainings, and these initially have been geared more towards counties and county road departments, and we hope in the future to increasingly involve timber companies and folks who are on the ground doing road maintenance work, and then private landowners as well. We've kind of started 10 years ago, started to build up, these approaches. And, the goal is to kind of have a whole range, of, cost effective from kind of easier, cheaper crossings to design and build up to the, middle, ground, and some span bridges would be, the Cadillac of these. And just to add is, just even in the past year or so, we're getting more and more companies that are realizing the need for this and are really putting a lot of design and thought into these bridge kits. Mm-hmm. And the price is coming down, and they're able to transport them either to the site, and it's almost like a Lego block approach where you can just kind of lay in the foundation and then modularly build the roadbed, and then do your gravel on top and get a good pack on it to really keep that gravel in place. The also just add, I mean, one a big component of this is once you put all that money and time and energy into building one of these roads, then it needs to be maintained. And I think probably we've all seen a road that may have been graded recently, and Forest Road, and may not have been graded the best, and it goes from being a nice pack and a solid road with a crown on it to just being kind of taking all that off. So a component of this work is also just to keep folks up to date with best practices in terms of maintenance. And as new folks come in, whether it's county judges or whether it's road maintenance supervisors, that knowledge is passed along. So transferring that knowledge and experience from folks who've been in a cab of a excavator or grader, to pass that along to the younger folks coming along.
Yeah, back to your initial question, I think, for now, the easiest way is to contact me directly, eric.brinkman@agfc.ar.gov, or Tyler. I'll let you give your email address.
I was just say let Seth throw that up.
And I can link y'all's emails in the description of this episode too, if that's okay. So it's an easy access for people to get to. I just wanted to make sure I was going to send folks to the correct spot before linking
And I think we do have an email group that reaches the entire partnership, so we can try to provide that as a link too.
We'll be improving the website, hopefully too, along the way. But this work that we're doing and the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnerships doing, is inclusive of everybody and truly benefits everyone, who uses gravel roads or enjoys fishing, enjoys paddling or swimming, on our state's beautiful waterways. So love to hear from folks.
Well, gentlemen, is there anything, we've kind of made it to the end of our discussion, but is there anything else that you want to add or you want to say before we wrap this up?
Well, no, I just want to thank you again for having us here on this rainy morning in Central Arkansas. It's definitely a good day to talk about our unpaved roads networks and stream crossings and what we can do to improve them going forward.
Yeah, appreciate you having us. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, no, and thank you guys for stopping in. I know there's been, I mentioned that you guys are kind of stepping into a leadership role, so there's some transition going on right now with the partnership, but I thank y'all for taking some time out and kind of helping shed some light on what it is that you guys are doing.
All right. Thanks, Seth. I'm just saying, it's teamwork that makes stream work.
We want to thank you guys, too, for joining us this month on Voices of Forestry. As always, want to give a special thank you to some guy named Rob McCormick for the use of our theme song, The Same Love. That's off of his album, The Folkster. You can find more of his music on Spotify. And as always, we've got a link to his website with show information and music information in the description of this episode. And we want to say thank you one last time to DDK Forestry and Real Estate for their support of the show. So make sure you come back next month when we'll have a new topic, a new discussion, and a new